Welcome to Transplants, a podcast featuring conversations with women thriving in new roots abroad. I'm your host, Laura Perucci, a Brazilian journalist calling NYC home for over a decade. Each episode, we unpack the transitions, culture shocks, setbacks, and joys of starting a new life in another country, so you can learn from their insights and make your own bold move. Because I truly believe real stories are the strongest way to spark real growth. Hello! One thing that I need to share about today's episode is that I was so honored and honestly a little amazed and perhaps a little shocked when Milena Berry said yes to my podcast invitation. I mean, she's a busy CEO, and I came out of nowhere with the invitation to be on my podcast that was not even live at that time. It was just like a project that I was working on it. And it was one of those moments during the pre-production phase where I thought, maybe this is the universe telling me to keep going. Anyway, let me introduce you to my guest. Milena is originally from Bulgaria, and she is the co-founder and CEO of PowerToFly, a platform that connects underrepresented talent to inclusive companies, helping women, LGBTQIA plus folks, and people of color find jobs, upskill, and thrive in tech and beyond. So make sure to check PowerToFly after listening to this podcast. In this episode, she shares her story about moving to New York City right before the 9/11, building a career in tech as an immigrant woman, and raising 4 kids with her wife and learning to belong. And just a quick heads up, we had a video recording issue, so this one is audio only, but trust me, the conversation is rich and deeply inspiring. So let's listen to Milena's transplant story. So hi, Milena, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Laura. Thank you for having me.
I want to start from the beginning. You were born in Bulgaria, and you moved to New York City almost 24 years ago, if my math is not wrong. And you came here to pursue your master's degree at NYU. So my question is around that move. What was life like at that time? Like, were you living in Bulgaria right before moving? Was this master supposed to be like temporary? Like, I'll go there and I'll come back, or I really want to stay in the States? And have you ever imagined that one day you'll be like running a global company from Brooklyn? So tell me everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I ever imagined I'd be running a global company from Brooklyn. But I don't know. I guess life makes sense in retrospect. But, when you're younger and just starting, you kind of put one foot in front of the other and things end up working out. And then later looking back, you kind of see how it all makes sense. But yeah, no, when I moved to New York in 2001 was not the first time I left Bulgaria. I left Bulgaria after high school to go to college in the Netherlands, in a college in a suburb of Amsterdam. It was a pretty amazing time, I think, overall. It was just the beginning of this whole concept of shared labor across the EU, shared education across the EU, shared, mobility across the EU. Up until those late 90s, it was very restricted mobility between East and West Europe for sure, but even within the West Europe, right? The Erasmus program then kind of started sending the first students from, Finland to Holland, and from Holland to Italy, and from Italy to England. And it kind of started from the students, and then people were given right to work elsewhere. So like a Spanish person could start working in the Netherlands and have that like EU-wide work permit. So that was just the beginning of those years. And as a Bulgarian, it was very, very difficult to leave Bulgaria in the first place, but then to kind of settle into college life in the Netherlands. And then it's funny because later I think like we talk about why did I feel like I belong in New York City? And that's an interesting question in itself. But in the Netherlands, I definitely felt like I didn't belong. And
why is that?
It's a very homogenous society. number one, and seemingly open, right? Like everybody speaks English, for example. But
Mm-hmm.
there is a certain level of superiority complex for anybody who's different or not of that, you know, look and feel as the regular Dutch person, right? So
Okay.
I think a lot of Turkish people face a lot of discrimination there. People from North Africa face discrimination there. And as usual in Europe, everybody hates their neighbors too, right? So the Dutch are fighting with the German and with the French and with the Belgian. Everybody has beef with each other, right? So, but in general, I felt welcome when I was speaking English, and then when I tried to
Mm-hmm.
learn Dutch, people got ice cold somehow. And so I felt I was like, this is so limiting. At the same time, in New York and in the US, Silicon Valley was exploding with these internet companies and the first dot-com boom. And I just felt like I wanted to live on the forefront of innovation of where it's happening and not, although Amsterdam was years ahead of what was happening in Bulgaria. So I had already leaped a lot by leaving Bulgaria for Amsterdam. I still felt I needed that leap. I still felt like I was living behind the innovation that was happening in Silicon Valley and in the new U.S. economy from the technological point of view by staying in Amsterdam. So yeah, and definitely a lot of like nonlinear paths there because I studied for a business degree, did some really nice internships for kind of more of a standard career in business, but then got like, no, I'm going to be an artist. And I
Oh,
a,
wow.
a VJ, that was my job. Like I created a company for literally VJ services. And of course I didn't make any money, so I had to be a barista during the day. That was my fifth year in Amsterdam. Already done with my degree. I had like kind of a year of like waiting for my grad school program in New York. Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of like, let's do business and then let's do art. And then the program at NYU was perfect because it was a grad program that didn't care for you to have an undergrad degree in art, right? It was in the Tisch School of the Arts at NYU. It had the very antiquated name, Interactive Telecommunications Program. And because it was started in 1978 when interactive telecommunications sounded really cool and cutting edge. And I just, fell in love with that program and wanted to do anything I could to go there because they put together teams of people from different backgrounds. So it was okay to be one with a business undergrad degree and another one would have a computer science undergrad degree and the third one's going to have an architecture undergrad degree and the fourth one computer science or like fine art or whatever, right? The whole idea is to put kids from different backgrounds together to work on the cutting edge technology and applications in business and in arts. Uh, and so it was super cool experience, but that's kind of what got me in the US.
But it was supposed to be temporary, or you saw this like this is my door to try other things because you realized that was not going to happen in Europe.
Well, for me, when I left Bulgaria, it wasn't like I'm just going to try this thing and come back, right? I was leaving Bulgaria for good. And the same thing happened when I was leaving the Netherlands. Like, I was like, this is not working out. I'm moving on to the US. I didn't know if New York's going to be the final destination. There was definitely moments when living on a banana a day type of budget, you feel
Uh-huh.
like, I got to get out of here. This is not working, but New York has a special pull too. And yeah, I, got very lucky in life and, it ended up working out.
Can you share with everybody that is listening what happened after you got here?
So I don't know. The school year starts around that, like the week after Labor Day, right? So that's kind of when I arrived
Yeah.
in New York. I started settling in. I had a little room in actually not too far from here, but on Flatbush and Sixth Avenue. Yeah, one day we were just waking up in the morning watching TV and we saw that one of the Twin Towers was hit. So it was literally the week of September 11th that I arrived in New York looking for my new destiny. And it was definitely a shocking time. We ran up to the roof because you could kind of see it from, Flatbush in Brooklyn to to downtown Manhattan. You could see one of the towers was, under fire, and then as we were kind of watching from the rooftop, we actually saw the second tower get hit at
Oh
burst
my
into
God.
flames. So it was a really intense day, and I certainly was like, did I come to New York? Like, is this a sign from God? Take your bags and go home. Like
Uh-huh.
it's definitely a very kind of strong signal of like, buckle up for this ride. But I decided to stay, and I'm glad I did. I think New York, although I didn't know New York before that, I had only visited a couple of times briefly before. I experienced a New York that was really, I don't know, there was like this air of camaraderie. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody was like trying to be really kind to each other, which is usually the
Mm-hmm.
first thing somebody would say for a New Yorker, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think it was a really special time, and I was just part of the community that lived through, what is it like? I actually was doing a lot of sound art at that time, so I ended up publishing a piece of art that is just the soundscape of that day, of just like walking down the streets of Brooklyn and hearing what podcasts
Oh.
from people's radios were, or TVs, or the sirens passing by, or the people's conversations. And so, and yeah, I still have to revive it one day, but it got exhibited in Cuba.
Nice. When you finish your master's, what were your next moves? And is there anything you did that you believe that was essential for? Were you like job hunting? And if you were, like, if there's something that you did that helped you and you could share?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really difficult to make this transition from coming to the US for education purposes and then to stay and work. I think there's just a lot of intricacies in the visas. And so everybody
Yeah.
has to really work with understanding the law and meeting with some lawyers and stuff like that, but beware of the, sleazes out there as well. But you have to be smart with the lawyers you end up picking. But in general, I had, I believe, I'm trying to forget. I believe at the time they would give you like a 1 year after graduation to
Yes.
work. But then I also applied for the extraordinary alien visa because I had this art portfolio, right? I wasn't just, like in a regular job. And so I got a 3-year basically permit to live and work
Oh.
as an extra.
Is the O visa?
Yeah, the O visa, extraordinary alien visa. So, and then what ended up happening is that I fell in love and got married to an American citizen. So I ended up getting my visa actually through marriage at the end of the day.
Oh, so you got married like at the beginning of your journey in the States, like
Pretty
we could say,
much. I
right?
mean, I arrived in 2001 and we got married 2005. My wife and I met at the grad school. We were
Mm-hmm.
together, and honestly, a big part of, my ability to navigate the career ecosystem here was the fact that she was giving me a lot of advice, a lot of support, a lot of guidance. I was using her network as well. And so also just the network we got from being at the grad school program, right? Like she met certain people that advanced her career there, that then advanced my career. And so we definitely going to grad school. I don't find the value in education is in the factuals that you learn. It's about the networks that you create, whether that's with professors or with the other students. That's what really causes a career transformation through education. The exact skills don't really matter as much. You can learn anything by yourself these days. But yeah, basically, I had a couple of odd jobs after grad school, whatever I could find. I remember with my fancy grad school graduate degree, I was a manual tester of an application on old school 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mobile phones. I was working at a company that made a HVAC application for that, and I was the tester on the old school phones. And then I was sent around the country to work with HVAC technicians trying to adopt this technology. So little by little, I was kind of putting my foot in tech. Then the next job I got, I quickly thereafter, right? Like I would always look for something that paid better. was more permanent because this was a contractor gig as the lowest job you could get as tester. Then the next thing I got was a director of production, a company that was kind of running a lot of projects at the same time. They needed somebody to manage that. I worked there for a year. And then I got pregnant with our first, and it was a very high stress environment. And my wife had started a couple of projects, one of which turned into the HuffingtonPost.com, and the other one turned into this nonprofit called Avaz.org. And I was helping her on the side with the Avaz project, kind of supporting her in that. About, I don't know, 10 months, whatever, our baby was 10 months old. What ended up happening is she got offered a full-time job now at one of these companies at the Huffington Post. And so she was excited to take it. It was working with really great people to create something really big and impactful. I was like, but this Avaz job looks really cool. I would love to have it. And we basically used her connections to say like, hey, give this Milena a try, give my wife a try, and let's see. She's going to work hard to defend it. And obviously my wife was helping me in the background, and I was doing the day-to-day part of the job, and I would wake up every morning so excited because I was learning something new. But I also had the support of when I got stuck on something that was difficult, I knew kind of how to start resolving it with the help that I was getting from my wife and her network. So that's kind of how my transition happened. And so I feel like I got very lucky and privileged as a result. My wife is also transgender. She wasn't out of the closet then. So, reflecting on our experience, there certainly was some privilege that she was given because she was presenting as male. Yeah, we don't know what our careers would have been if she had been presenting as trans during those times. Maybe a lot.
Unfortunately,
maybe a lot more fun.
Yeah. So that's how you became CTO at Avaz, because that was one of my questions.
I was extremely underqualified for that position. But I woke up every day before brushing my teeth. I would check my, at the time, BlackBerry. I'm dating myself to see what was going on, if the servers were in crisis, if I needed to raise some DBA or sysadmin or coder, fix something to launch a project. So I just learned it on the job. And again, with a lot of help from Andrea, my wife.
Oh, have you watched the movie about the BlackBerry?
I think so, yes. How they almost they grow this crazy big valuation and then it all years on them. Yeah.
And then they launched the Apple launched the iPhone. Yeah, it's a new movie, and it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating, especially for people that probably Gen Z that didn't have access to the kind of phone. I never had a BlackBerry, but I had Nokia, Motorola. Is that how you say it? Those basic phones that some people today have no idea that existed before, right?
Well, I don't know. I think the times of those phones is coming back maybe sometimes because we're
very
overloaded with every other app pinging you everywhere, so.
Yeah. But since we're talking about your work at Avaz, can we talk a little bit about this, the gender thing? Because I guess even today, we know that women are less likely to get promoted compared to men. And I imagine that back in 27, for you, it was a pretty big of a deal. Being a woman in that position.
I mean, it was part of my inspiration. It was a big deal. And it was part of my inspiration for PowerToFly because I think part of what made it possible is the fact that the job was remote and I didn't have to be in an office all the time. So I could spend the time with the kids. We had 3 kids in 5 years at that time. So it was a really intense time also from a childbearing perspective. It would not have happened if the job was not remote. So that was a big, something that really helped with the friction and why I was able to do it. I think in general, Listen, they definitely had. It's an interesting one because there was always a guy who worked with me to decide what to build in terms of the product. Right, I was the chief technical officer, but it was always
Mhm.
somebody who was more in charge of the what product decisions we're making and what we need to build, and that was usually a guy, in kind of reporting into the executive director. And again, I think I managed to defend my spot there, but also because I was out on maternity leaves and right, like childbearing years, they ended up hiring somebody who became a little hands-on above me too much, and that ended up pushing me out. And me wanting me to kind of like to leave the job and to start something new. I will say that I used Avaz, this distributed work model, as inspiration. And Avaz was not the only place where I saw that work. I think I saw also that work with my wife's company, which she had started, Rebel Mouse, and also with how she had set up her distributed teams at the Huffington Post. Yeah, I think that was really one of the things again, I took over into PowerToFly being distributed from day one.
When you decided to create your company and you like get inspiration from Avast and from your own position, like working from home, were people like skeptical about that? Because I'm just like thinking about like COVID and the way that everybody was like kind of like, now there's no choice, we have to work from home. But a lot of companies are still like very conservative, and we're seeing kind of like a shift of they're saying like 4 days a week in the office. Even today, like it's 25. How was that back in the day when you decided to launch PowerToFly? I know like that you're coming from your experience, like I know this works because I'm living this, but how was like the response from other people when you talk about it?
Yeah, for me, it was the story of hope. I am here and I managed to have a high profile job in tech because I had a support network and because I was able to work in a flexible way, right? Otherwise, I would have been pushed out to focus on the kids during those years. I would not have been able to make it work. So I think that's important. And when we started PowerToFly in 2014, the world was pretty much split into two camps. The minority, the ones who had lived the distributed model, seen about the efficiencies that it can produce, see how you can develop around the clock and hand off. If you process it done the right way, you can hand off from a team in APAC to a team in EMEA to a team in the to the Americas, and kind of you can continue productivity around the clock if you structure your company the right way. Or you could set it up the wrong way, experience horrible productivity losses, and declare it can't happen, and then you're like very like, oh, innovation happens only around the water cooler. And I usually in 2014, I didn't spend my time persuading the water cooler guys that they should change their mind because I found them incredibly stubborn and obstinate about keeping an open ear. It wasn't until Meta said we're going remote in 2020 due to COVID that every other, I was going to say douchebag, but, every other CEO in the Bay Area said, oh yeah, we're going to do this remote thing. And so it's particularly disappointing that now a few years later they're all going back to this mandating in person. I think in general, like they've just like spent so much on real estate that they can't get out of it or something. They're definitely limiting their supply of talent by requiring people to be in office, and they're limiting their supply of diverse talent as well. Because even if you get lucky and you attract whoever's available to you locally, you're missing out on a lot of diversity by limiting this just to your local talent pool.
Yeah, and also like if you consider like how is the immigration system in the US, how hard it is like to apply for a visa, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. They have so much talent that they don't allow to work here. It's not okay. But yeah, so certainly that's a challenge.
Let's still like talk about this. and women working. And sometimes women don't feel like confident enough to go after promotions or leadership roles. And I guess for immigrant women, sometimes that is even worse. Like I've seen like in my circle, like friends or people that I know that they have like great resumes, they have the skills, they were like amazing people working, let's say back in Brazil, but they feel like they're not confident enough to go after what they want, or they feel like my English is not good enough, or my resume is not good enough because my experiences are not from are not my experiences are based in another country. So yeah, you have a lot to deal with when you move to another country, and your confidence, especially in a city like New York, right? So what would you say to immigrant women that feel that way, like especially like in your position with all the things that you conquered? So you show that it's possible. So what did you say? How do you push through that? Have you ever felt that way during your journey because of your background or because you're a woman?
I mean, for sure, I felt like the imposter syndrome is real. I definitely think I experienced that while doing the CTO job at a boss. And part of it is because how I got it as well. But, it's definitely like I never felt like good enough for it. And I think the same type of, listen, I'm a great CEO. I'm so proud of what my company has done and our impact over 11 years and the brands we've worked with. And it's just the whole thing. Like there's so much that I've done right. But at the same time, I still struggle with this imposter syndrome of a first-time CEO. And so I think that imposter syndrome is perhaps stronger for us immigrants. And then you sometimes get into the whole thing of like just the practicalities of working, right? Like navigating legal work in the US is so hard that, again, like a lot of immigrants put up with unreasonable workloads in illegal work because they're trying to prove themselves and find a route to being legal as well. And so I think, and then when you have an employer who finds kind of a recent immigrant and pays very little, right, as a strategy, they're kind of waiting for them to quickly leave for something that's going to pay them better. So you definitely accept less pay. You also, your resume looks worse. Like I remember like that job that I ended up being the manual tester for, graduates from our program got the Java developer roles there. But they all had like their, permanent residency. They had their papers, they had everything, done right for them. And so they could get this better job that paid benefits and whatever, health insurance. And I had to go and take the contractor job that paid barely enough to pay the rent, right? So there's obstacles everywhere, but the question is, don't focus on the obstacles. Just focus on putting one foot in front of the other, and then things end up working out. Again, I count myself very lucky. I feel like I've been very lucky, very privileged, and so there's some amount of luck involved as well, for sure.
But you made it work.
Yeah, and yeah, I am very grateful to the people who've helped me be here today.
I mean, you had like chances, right? I guess everybody needs chances because, yeah, I also think it's not just, work hard and things are going to happen. Sometimes that is not true. You need opportunities and chances. And I guess like looking at your story and also like your platform, you kind of like work for the things that you believe in and that you advocate for.
Yeah, our tagline is talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And I guess I was just reflecting a little bit on how the word opportunity and the word chance are interrelated. In the sense that you can, right? Like you have to be given the chance for the opportunity, so to say. So I think there is something there. And then PowerToFly really is that connective tissue between companies and people, candidates, and organizing these events, which then become the chances, the opportunities for these two parties to meet. And of course, we're very focused on, can you get your next job at PowerToFly? We have a growing number of AI jobs on PowerToFly, which is really exciting. I don't think there's many hubs of AI jobs out there, and PowerToFly is quickly becoming one of the largest ones. So that's also a really interesting development for 2025. And of course, then the talent comes to PowerToFly to do two things. One, if they have budding AI knowledge, which everybody only has budding AI knowledge, right? Like, I think the oldest Gen AI developer would have 2 years of experience max, right? From the kind of the launch of the OpenAI API. My point is, there's people who are looking and can qualify for these jobs. And then there's people who have to gain new skills and upskill. Let's say I'm a backend developer, but I need to understand Gen AI. I can take a Gen AI course on PowerToFly to upskill and to become basically an AI developer. Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that. And so the new opportunity is jobs in AI, is what I'm trying to say.
Let's talk about your life in the States. Was there a moment when you realized that United States or maybe New York, because you've always been in New York, right? This entire time.
Yeah, I've traveled elsewhere, but like I've only lived here. Yeah.
Yeah. So was that a moment that you realized like, wow, this is home now? Like,
Yeah.
and what belonging means to
Well, I
you?
mean, for me, I definitely remember when my wife and I got together. That was about 6 months after we had graduated from grad school. And right before it, I was having definitely thoughts of like, oh, am I going to stay in New York, or this is so hard and I don't know, like I might not stay in New York. And so it was really our love that anchored me to New York. And, now we have like a family of 4. And so we started living in the Lower East Side. Then we moved to Battery Park. Now we live in Park Slope. Those of people who are kind of familiar with the New York State tri-state area, we've lived in different neighborhoods, in the different kind of phases of our marriage. And for me, that's kind of when I knew New York is home. It's where my kids are born. It's where my life is with my wife and my family. So I don't feel like I belong anywhere else. I visit Bulgaria usually every summer. There's definitely been some times when we haven't gone for a variety of reasons, but I couldn't. Bulgaria is not home, right? It's the place I was born, but it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, and so New York. What's beautiful about New York, I think, is that, and I always tell the story of like when I was getting naturalized in, I think 2009 or something, was my naturalization ceremony when I became officially a U.S. citizen. It was this beautiful big hall in City Hall, downtown Manhattan, and so big room, lots of people doing the thing at the same time. And on my right were refugees from Burma, and on my left were Hasidic Jews from I don't know, I guess recently moved from Israel. I just had this like, you belong by being different in New York, right? Like everywhere else in the world, even in the West Coast sometimes, when somebody's second word for me is like, where are you from? That kind of, for me, shows that the mindset is, where are you from? Because you look different, right? Like because you don't belong. And in New York, it's, where are you from is more like, we're all from different places, everybody's, and so that makes you belong to each other, right? Because everybody's coming from a different place. And that's the natural state, and that there's some amount of tolerance that happens with it that I find was missing from me in Europe or in my experiences on the West Coast.
I love what you say about like the where you're from, because yeah, I agree with you. I think like people are here, they are open-minded for sure, but they expect that, right? It's not like you're not that different because you're not from here. It's just something that is part of the city, and I think it's what makes New York New York. I mean, we as like immigrants and expats with the New Yorkers, we make New York. If it wasn't there, right, New York wouldn't be what it is
It's a
today.
very special place for sure.
A lot of people have that feeling of like being kind of like in between places, have like a strange feeling when going back home, which is not home, your country. So how do you feel when you go back?
The in-between feeling. I don't know. It's weird when I go back home and the radio plays some sort of nostalgic Bulgarian song from my childhood. I'm like, oh, like my heart feels it still, right? Like I feel very connected to that culture. I understand the culture so deeply. Every reference, right? I understand like
Yeah.
19 years of my life is where I grew up. And there's definitely then an overlay of guilt trip, of leaving that behind, which I don't know, is just might be just my family that they excelled guilt tripping. Maybe I excel guilt tripping myself. I don't know. But there's definitely this element of like guilt, or it's not exactly like the survivor's remorse, but it's something like, like I went and I didn't work on fixing anything there. I just got the hell out and kind of created my own life somewhere else. So there's a little bit of that. And then here in New York, yeah, there's days when I'm like, are we gonna be safe in this city? There's just a lot of new law that is happening under the current administration that I hope doesn't get to New York, because we have a governor or a mayor or any one of them to protect us. I don't know. It's not great. So there's elements where New York might not be the final destination if we have to, flee from here. But I think in general, I would like it to be. I love the climate in the summer. I dream sometimes of a life where we get to leave for some of the coldest winter months and go to a tropical destination. I think that's very much like what a lot of people in the Northeast do sometimes. I think but New York's so vibrant, so artistic. Hopefully the kids' lives are around here too. I think that's going to determine our sense of belonging in the future as well, is where do the kids settle? Yeah, there's just a lot going on at all times.
How is art part of your life today? Since you mentioned that, and I think that was like fascinating. I could never imagine that, because my husband is in tech, and I know a lot of his friends. Yeah, there's like the stereotype of the tech people, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I don't know. I hope to be able to make more art again one day. I also kind of feel weird saying it out loud, because now it's going to be one of those things I'll feel guilty for procrastinating or something since I've said it out loud. But
Sorry about that.
it is in my heart. And I think of some of that sound art piece that I did on September 11th, and some of the video work I did in the past, and I think like it can be kind of a fun thing to go back to if I'm ever in a point where I don't need a job, and maybe kind of work more actively towards getting back to it. I think there's certain satisfaction that I got out of creating, but then I kind of focused on having a career and income and, the whole thing. So I think, but I also know that life can be figured out if you just follow your passions. So it is definitely a conversation in my mind of like, how can I start making some of that happen without waiting for retirement or anything like that, right? I don't like when people leave their dreams up for when it's too late, or some imaginary date in the future. I think at that point, just don't talk about it. You can do anything starting today, not like when I turn 65 one day, far away day from today. So one of our daughters is an artist, and we're very, very proud of her. She's like very creative, got admitted to LaGuardia High School, which is the best for art in the city. So it's kind of nice to see some of that gene pool. And my wife was also very creative too, because we both went to this grad school of arts, really arts and tech. We're kind of both reliving some of that through her at the moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Well, that is something. Since we were talking about belonging before, and we also talk about how the male dominated domination in the corporate world, and we know like the technology industry, it's like male dominated. I was gonna ask you what helped you feel like you belonged in tech, and what would you say to women that are curious about that field and perhaps they feel like, this is not for me, it's only for guys, but they are curious about it, maybe switching careers or starting something new. What would you say to encourage these women to go for it?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of male-dominated technology teams are definitely getting reformed right now by injecting more diversity in the workforce. I mean, that's what we do with PowerToFly, right? Like if an engineering leader comes and says like, help, all of my engineers are guys, we can then connect him to diversify his teams and bring more women or people of color or gay people or whatever, right, to his team. Usually his team, by the way. But, I still have a lot of, but I was just kind of wanted to notice here a little unconscious bias. But, I certainly have a lot of CTO contacts who are female, but the majority are definitely male. And then I would say that, again, it is it's a career that really provides a lot of flexibility while you're raising a family. So I think that's something that I think is very actually really compatible for women. And that ability to work from home doesn't happen with every job. And I think looking for that in technology is great. And then we're also very good at problem solving. And there's a big element of creativity and problem solving in technology solutions, right? Like it's almost like the skill set that's really needed is the creativity. It's not the technical acumen. That's then the boring part of how you implement something. So I think if you look at it from that perspective, for me personally, why did I get attracted to technology? Because it was just like new and cutting edge, and just to be abreast of all the new stuff happening. It was always fascinating me from, again, I don't know, like I wanted to be a part of it. So that's what I get out of. Yeah.
You talk about your daughter. You have 4 kids, right?
We have 4 kids.
And I always we know the saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And I also often hear from immigrant women how it's hard to raise kids away from their family, because if you are near a family, you have sometimes your parents to help or relatives. Do you feel that it was more complicated to raise a family, like being away from where I know that you don't call home, but away from your family? And I know your wife is also, she's Mexican, right?
Yeah.
She's also an immigrant. So you both are here, we're here like raising a family. Do you think it would be different if you're not immigrants, or?
Yeah. So my wife is also American. Her dad is American.
Yeah, true.
So
Yeah.
she grew up between the two cultures, between Mexico and California, and then later in high school moved to Oregon. So now that's where our in-laws are. That's still far away. Whether that's
It's too far away. Yeah.
I think we've really enjoyed being very hands-on with the kids, and both of us working from home. I think we've been very, very lucky to have that time to spend with the kids and to be able to kind of juggle our jobs with the kids. Before COVID, we had a nanny who was with us from 9 to 5, and that was very necessary in those years for us to even be able to work from home. And then the kids were a little bit more grown up and better schedules, and so we were able to handle life without her. Certainly, my mom used to come to help. She no longer does, and the kids go every summer for a couple of weeks with the in-laws in Oregon as well. So I think they love their time with their grandparents there. So I think we try to make it work, but we're not one of those people who has like a big network of friends and then you're always trying to find somebody to take care of the kids. We've been a lot more hands-on and present, and just always either me or my wife takes care of them.
Yeah. I guess this is I see this a lot, like in Brazilian families and Latin America families, because I know, like for example, in America, people move to other states to pursue like careers, going to college, and they build their lives sometimes like away from their families. So I guess for maybe like for Americans that's not like so no, I wouldn't say complicated, but it's kind of like expected to be away from your family. In other cultures, it's like, especially like the Latinos are so, it's a lot.
Bulgaria as well, like in general.
Yeah.
But, again, my family is a little more dysfunctional, so it didn't happen. But anyway, certainly feeling grateful and lucky and blessed
Yeah.
to have the kids, and they're just all really, really wonderful.
You mentioned before your partner is a transgender woman, and that's a powerful part of your family story. I imagine that this journey comes with like unique challenges and insights, and I was wondering, how has that experience shaped your views on identity and on partnership?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough time in the world for transgender people who are under attack everywhere. It really started a few years ago with kind of the right-wing agenda on it, targeting a lot of kids. It's targeting transgender adults. It is a really scary time to be part of that community. I will say that for us, our life just changed dramatically when my wife came out of the closet. And in a very, very beautiful way, to kind of see her express her true identity, and for us to be, to women raising a family, to moms raising 4 kids. I mean, it's just been so beautiful to see. And so many moments of like shared clothing and shared perfumes or jewelry or whatever, right? Like, so I think it's been awesome. And it certainly also comes with having to deal with the world staring or the world not understanding, certain rifts with, close family members or formerly close friends. Certainly this, the world's not always ready to understand the beauty of transgender people. And it's certainly an issue personal to me. And in the work environment, similarly so, right? I think we have so much to learn about how to be more inclusive of all forms of gender expression, not just the transgender expression. We're actually doing a lot of content this month with PowerToFly on the topic as we are entering into June as our Pride Month. But a lot of work is needed in the workplace to make it a place where transgender folks can belong.
What does success look like for you now, but not as a founder or CEO, but as Milena, the person?
Well, I feel a little far from that, but really having enough time to spend with my kids and my partner, and with starting to really, some of that like artistic hobbies that I was talking about. I think that would be really lovely to kind of have more balance for that. I think it's been a really hard year for companies in our space, and also stabilizing the business would be really nice as well, and that would be success as well. But primarily, it's really spending time with the family that I definitely want to do more of, and I not always had the chance to.
Okay, and my last question for you is for the other immigrant women that are listening to this podcast, what is one message that you would want them to take away from your story?
I mean, just go for it, right? There's this definitely an element of bravery, which is not feeling scared, but kind of doing it anyway. That I think is
Pushing through.
very big part of the immigrant story. And again, don't focus on the obstacles, focus on the destination. continue reinventing yourself in your dream, right? And also, don't always ask for more. Be happy. Allow yourself time to be happy and not just to want more and more and more.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope that this conversation can inspire a lot of women out there. I know that you have to go. So
It was letting meet you, Laura. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you for your time. Bye-bye. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and please don't be shy and message me your thoughts about it. My Instagram is Laura_Perucci. You can also follow the podcast, which is transplants.pod on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. This is going to help us a lot. You can also follow the show on Spotify. And if you don't want to miss the new episodes, subscribe to our newsletter on Substack so you can receive the new episodes in your inbox. I'm gonna leave all these links on the description of YouTube, whatever is the platform that you were listening or watching this. So check it out, and thank you so much for being here. Until next time, bye!